All right. Hello. Today we are reviewing Breaking Bad News 12 Essential Crisis Communication Tools by Mr. Jeff Hahn. So, quick bit of disclosure, I worked with Jeff for a few years when he first bought his firm and learned a lot from watching him operate. And recently I had a chance to reconnect with him and I found out he had written a book, which was exciting because if you know Jeff, he can turn a phrase and that he's always tinkering with models and frameworks and ways of thinking about things. So when I found out he wrote a book, I snagged a copy. And I don't work in PR or crisis communications, but something that's been happening in my career the last couple of years is I've increasingly been brought into security conversations. So either when something bad has already happened or when we're concerned about something that might happen and how are we going to deal with it? Who's in charge? Who's going to respond? Are there legal ramifications? All of those sorts of things. So, with that in mind, this book was somewhat timely, even though it's not quite in my wheelhouse of what I'm doing on a day to day professionally. So, what's in this thing? So, he describes it as a lattice work of 12 tools that help you communicate clearly when something bad happens. So, I'm not going to list out the 12 tools, but there's 11 chapters and 12 different communication models or frameworks that help you think through and respond to incidents. So each one goes through what the model is or the tool, where it came from, and when to use it. So some of these are Jeff's models. Some of them are academic models, communication models. So like I said, I'm not going to go through all of them on here. There's a pretty exhaustive list. You got to read the book. In addition to, I'm going to talk about Jeff's main model that he goes through. But a couple that struck me were Benoit's image repair theory, which I'm not even going to get into it, but that and the crisis type matrix was also useful. It was a 2x2 matrix that helps you classify what kind of issue you're dealing with. So another one that always is near and dear to my heart is Roger's classic diffusion of innovations. In my research at University of Texas studying advertising, online gambling, the early adopters, laggards, that model was very interesting on how people were adopting online poker. But anyway, this is about the book. Jeff's signature model, which is tool number 3, I believe, in this book, is his Reputation Dissonance Model. So this is the heart and soul of the book, and it explains what happens to reputation when bad news breaks and how to reduce the panic, the fear, and the confusion that follows. So there's 2 big phases. This is a linear model where he breaks it down into minutes and months. And in this minutes, when bad news breaks, something terrible has happened or something that needs responding to, he goes through the different sequence and how it unfolds and what you should do, and then on into the recovery. So he calls it the TikTok box, which is the minutes where you're either going to get control of the narrative or this is going to get out of control. And then the second, where you get into the months, is where you're trying to recover and stabilize and build that. That can take months or years. So he shows you how to move through those phases, who's going to talk, when to say it, all of the mechanics from an insider's point of view. And he uses this reputation dissonance model to illustrate this idea. So there's lots of good stuff in this book. A few highlights that stuck with me, just random tidbits. It starts the origin of his family in Iowa losing their farm in 1975, and that was his first deep dealing with crisis and how they bounce back. There's a gentleman, I'm not in the PR field, but I think this is a fairly well-known book called Glass Jaw by a gentleman named Desenhall. He's got something called the Fiasco Vortex, which if I had a metal band, I'm pretty sure that's what I would name it. We go through in painstaking detail the listeria outbreak. I think I had listeria by the time I got done reading all of the different outbreaks that Bluebell, the beloved ice cream brand in Texas, had. We touch on the BP Horizon idiot who said he wants his life back in the middle of the mega disaster in the ocean. Talk about scapegoats, and I love the phrase scapegoat, and by the way, it's circumstance if you read the book. Using tricolons or triads in the way that you structure sound bites or your communication. First, then, if you've studied copywriting at all, that kind of rule of threes is very prevalent. He also dispels the idea of the fixer, this popular idea that you hire the PR expert and they'll come in and fix everything. And he said, that's BS. It's more akin to a navigator to help you navigate through this unfortunate circumstance. There's some stuff about meat grinders. I'm never going to talk about being thrown in a meat grinder again. There's a mention of a man who lives in an airplane hangar. I enjoyed that reference. Antifreeze involving Fireball whiskey. That was kind of odd. But anyway, for my particular world, a few things that I can take away as far as technology and security, holding statements, assembling a rapid response team and establishing the channels of communication and just how everyone's going to get together. If someone's out scuba diving or someone's gone, how does everyone get in touch and how does this get handled? And then post-mortems, doing inventory after the fact, and then rebuilding trust or fixing issues so that they don't happen again. So some strengths of the book: very well written, clear as can be, lots of great metaphors, no mistakes pretty much. It sounds like Jeff, and he's very funny where appropriate. Some of the stuff is obviously serious subject matter, but there's other times where he talks about what it feels like to be in these crises that are funny. Definitely is in his voice. The other thing that's a strength of this book is that it's rooted in real world expertise. He's lived this, he's done this for a long time, both in the corporate world and now as an agency owner. So all of these models are informed, and there's an interplay between theoretical academic stuff, what other practitioners have put out into the field, and then his take on it. So it was a little more rich than I was expecting. He really shows his work and dives in on the citations and is engaged with the primary material. If I had any critiques or things I thought could be better, there were a few funky things with some of the charts. I couldn't tell you which ones, but there were a few. They were just formatting things that I'm sure happened at the printer, some overlaps and whatnot, just minor things. And then the ending, he ends with this flywheel chapter. It ended kind of abruptly for me, where I wanted to see all of the whole toolkit brought together, and maybe that's what the flywheel was intended to be. But I could have used a recap because we went through a lot of models very quickly, and there's a lot of density to this book. And so at the end, I felt like it was like, oh, well, here's the last tool, and then we're done. So it's not a reference book. You don't just flip into chapter 10 and learn X, Y, Z. So that was something I thought could be improved. So my final thoughts, I found out recently on LinkedIn that a new version is on the way, so I'm excited to see that. And if you work in marketing, comms, and PR, if you're in-house or work in an agency, or even if you just deal with something where you're the one who's responsible for breaking bad news, and of course, you gotta love the Breaking Bad pun, definitely snag a copy of Breaking Bad News by Jeff Hahn. Thanks, I'll see you on the next one.